Hey everybody, Felix Staffelbaker here. I wanted to make a video about the lack of information coming out of Block 1, the lack of communication, and really just the people who started off in the community or have come and gone over the years have really just thought that EOS should be more open and transparent as far as the company that built the open source protocol, and how it really is different from, say, a Cardano, where there's rampant hype going on and the founders are really out in the public pushing for their blockchain, even though they still don't have applications actively running on top that are made for global adoption or really any sort of adoption whatsoever. And it's got a lot of people confused because they're investing in things like Cardano when there's nothing going on, and meanwhile EOS has everything going on, but nobody seems to know what's going on because Block 1 has everything under wraps. And at the beginning it was very understandable why everything was being not even silenced, just under wraps and in the skunk works. And as time moved on, I started to think that maybe there was a reason for that, and it hit me on Block the day before B1 June. There was a leak the morning of voice supposed to go, the voice announcement by a media corporation, and Brendan Bloomer put out this tweet. It says, "We've had a lot of questions from our community and other media outlets as to why Bloomberg reported on Voice before our B1 June event. Bloomberg breached an embargo agreement in writing by Alastair Marsh, acknowledged the breach, but still refused to take down the article." And then he goes on to say, "We're committed to standing up for this ongoing abuse of power on behalf of our community, company, and others similarly wronged." And then you can email him if you had that. And this was tweeted on June 2nd of 2019. And I really found that to be a super startling, admission of basically a non-disclosure agreement. And what that means is that people sign a non-disclosure agreement to not talk about publicly any of the stuff that they're involved with in accordance with Block 1 and whatever they have going on. So, they could really be working on the Manhattan Project here, and we wouldn't necessarily know it because they're all documented, under the penalty of perjury and under the penalty of the law, these documents that keep them from speaking out publicly. And, especially in that tweet, Block 1 showed that they are willing to go after somebody if they were to disclose any information that was under those non-disclosure agreements. And they use legal terminology like an embargo, an embargo, to be able to, kind of end round around the public being able to know that that's a non-disclosure agreement. And we know that they have the Cooley law firm working on their behalf. They were the ones who were able to get the $24 million fine for the ICO lawsuit and settled and got a waiver through the SEC. So we know how powerful the Cooley law firm is and how committed they are to Block 1. And I put out a poll late last year, early this year, asking people just anonymously, have you ever signed a non-disclosure agreement with anything involving Block 1 or EOS? And we have to assume that I am assuming that the poll was honest and correct, and that people were not lying or making anything up when they answered it. But it was like 27% of the people who responded said yes. And when you tallied out the number of people who responded to the tweet to the 27%, it came out to like 8 people. And I don't get a ton of engagement, so I definitely don't have everybody who is working at Block One or involved with Block One on there. But to me, there was a handful of people who were honest. I didn't ask them to disclose anything. They weren't being forced to answer the poll. It was anonymous. You just click yes or no. And so if I'm assuming that poll was accurate and everyone was telling the truth, there are people who sign non-disclosure agreements involving EOS, and that makes it very difficult for me to try to explain to someone who invested in Cardano at 3 cents and it goes to $1.30 that they're in the wrong asset and that Cardano isn't even a working blockchain, and that they're gonna, they're just not a quality investment there. Meanwhile, EOS is continuously undervalued and hasn't moved up in price as much as some of those other hype coins, when it has literally, the amount of venture capitalists behind it, the amount of corporations behind it, the amount of governments behind it, that I've documented for years now. And that's going to be where the most amount of money is made when this is all said and done. So it's very hard for me to be able to tell somebody that, when right now, if you look at it, they're way up in their investment and we're stagnating or just slightly moving up in our investment. And I've been kind of struggling with that a little bit, and even really lost my inspiration to make a lot of EOS content and just post about EOS, because it kind of locked my mind whenever I was having an exchange with Raoul Pal and telling him that his negligence, he was talking about people in this tweet. I'll put this up here so you can see it. But basically, he was talking to some people saying that he understands people, but it doesn't require coercion or ad hominem attacks. It requires tolerance and discussion. And he was talking about people disagreeing with other people and which blockchain's better and this and that. And I clapped back at him and I said, he preaches tolerance and discussion, and then he ignores the elephant in the room. It's actually becoming malice at this point to promote Ethereum and not tout the advantages to a protocol like EOS that solve all of ETH's egregious problems. Like a gatekeeper, it's so weird. And then he literally responded saying, I had dinner with Brendan Bloomer this week. Back off. Don't make assumptions either way. And you got to understand that Raoul Pal is an ex-Goldman Sachs guy. Goldman Sachs is heavily involved with Block One. Marty Chavez, who was the technical officer at Goldman Sachs, is now on the board of directors with Block One. Both companies have announced that they're going to be releasing a Bitcoin product in mid 2021. And when you look at who's working together and who's what, it's clear that Goldman Sachs is going to be working with Block One. I understand that that's all under wraps, but then for a person like Raoul Pal to come out and tell me to back off and say don't make assumptions either way, when it's clear as day that he even admitted he had dinner with Brendan Bloomer. You don't have dinner with the CEO of Block One and not understand what's going on here. Yet he's never talked about EOS. I think the one time he mentioned it, he said, "Oh, it's got a long way to go." or something to that effect, like it wasn't ready yet or whatever, which is fine. We know it wasn't necessarily ready at that moment. But he's completely discounting any ability to talk about it in a public fashion because he's under a non-disclosure agreement. And that's what gets me just not ticked off. I'm not mad. I understand it. I was able to look at all the public available information and come to that conclusion based off of actual research and actual knowledge of what's going on, who those players are. I mean, Peter Thiel, who was on the board of directors, who helped start it up, he's working with PayPal, or he founded PayPal with Elon Musk. Tesla's now holding Bitcoin on their balance sheet. So all these massive players, literally the richest people in the world, are involved in this, and they just don't come out and tell you. But they will come out and tell you when their bags are full, when they're ready, and whenever the product is ready to be rolled out to the masses, so that they will even get more rich. That they don't want people investing in EOS. Like, that's what you have to understand. They want you to invest in a Bitcoin product that they provide on top of EOS once Bitcoin is 6 figures. And when you start to understand how the real world works, how this is all coming together, how there's separate gears and pinions and cogs, and how separately they look useless, they look like they're not doing anything, but when you bring it together, it's a well-oiled machine that will literally crush anything in its path. And that's what we're really seeing, is more or less a compartmentalization of this information that, mind you, is all public. I'm just a regular dude. I have no inside information. I just looked at everything publicly available and was able to put it together based off understanding how the real world works and understanding how corporations, governments, and elite wealth type people operate. And we see the same thing play out time and time again, and this time won't be any different. It'll blindside everybody who thought that EOS was a scam, that you notice that everybody's allowed to say EOS is a scam and nobody corrects them, but there's also all this information under lock and key that once it comes out, everyone will be made to look like fools. And it's important to have your I told you so's ready for those type of people, but they're so low information that they were given that predictive programming in the very beginning as a talking point to keep other people out. So when I go on somebody's Twitter and say, no, you got to look at EOS, it's the best investment we've ever seen in our whole life, which John Oliver said on his show, but he also started up the talking points and was given a script to say, to be able to get the pedo talking point about Brock Pierce, and but he also said that it's either going to be the worst investment of our life or the best investment of our life. You don't say something like that on national TV unless somebody scripts it for you. It's been through multiple people, and it's been given the green light. You have to understand, anything on television is predictive programming, is propaganda, is to be able to get you in a certain mindset that once you hear all that, now all of a sudden you will never look at it again. I mean, there's people who still haven't bought Bitcoin because somebody said it was a scam or somebody said it was a Ponzi scheme. And that's fundamentally incorrect, because we see governments buying it. We see institutions buying it. The most rich people in the world are buying it. So when you look at that, it's clear that there's a concerted effort to keep people out of EOS, and non-disclosure agreements are part of that. And I just want to say that I've never thought about harming myself. I will never commit suicide. I love God. I love my family. I love life. I'm just a regular dude who was able to see all the information in the public eye and then just point it out, plain and simple. And so there's a lot of people who just don't understand what's happening here, and it's going to cause them to miss out greatly. And I'm trying to get them to see that. And, you know, I just think that not paying attention to this will be detrimental to your livelihood, to your bank account, to everything in existence. And so this is the opportunity. Those who've taken advantage of it this far will be greatly rewarded. Everybody else will be stuck in the Stone Age, and the gap is about to get from here to here, and you'll never be able to catch back up. So I just want to put that out there. You know, keep your head up. I haven't lost my bullishness or my faith in EOS. I've just lost a little bit of inspiration because I had one of the most wealthy people in the world who knows exactly what's going on tell me to back off and don't believe my own eyes, or don't believe what he was using doublespeak in the same tweet. He said he met with the CEO of Block One, but that he's not under a non-disclosure agreement. Like, don't assume either way. Like, that is pure doublespeak, and that just really rocked me pretty hard. So I just want to put that out there. Keep up the fight, keep stacking EOS, and we're going to see this through. Staffelbaker out.